Welcome, traveller, to Medieval Screen Finds, a quiet corner of the internet where we explore history, a chill space where the echoes of the past gently guides you toward a peaceful time. As the day's last light fades and the world outside settles into slumber, we invite you to drift back in time with us to an age defined by the creak of timber and the sturdy thrum of iron on cobbled paths. Tonight, we turn our gaze not to kings or conquerors, nor to grand battles or soaring cathedrals, but to the often overlooked artisan whose quiet, ceaseless labour formed the very foundation of medieval movement. We journey into the world of the medieval wheelwright. Imagine yourself, if you will, standing at the edge of a bustling medieval thoroughfare. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and distant cooking fires, mingled with the earthy aroma of horses and the faint, metallic tang of a blacksmith's forge. Carriages rumble past, their wooden wheels groaning under the weight of goods, their axles protesting with every jolt over uneven stones. Wagons, laden with sacks of grain or bales of wool, slowly make their way toward distant markets. Knights, in their gleaming armour, ride mounted on horses, their destriers' powerful strides carrying them onward, often accompanied by supply carts bearing their provisions and armaments. All of this movement, this vital pulse of medieval life, depended utterly on the humble, yet incredibly complex wheel. For centuries, before the roar of engines replaced the rhythmic clatter of hooves and the steady turning of wooden wheels, human civilization moved at a different pace. It was a pace dictated by the strength of beasts of burden and the enduring craftsmanship of those who understood wood and iron. In this era, the wheel was not merely a component. It was the very essence of connectivity, trade, and even warfare. Without reliable wheels, armies could not march with their siege engines and supplies, merchants could not transport their wares to bustling towns, and farmers could not bring their harvests from distant fields to their homes or to market. The world, in essence, would grind to a halt. And who, you might softly wonder, ensured that these vital wheels continued their tireless rotation? Who possessed the knowledge, the strength, and the unyielding patience to craft these essential tools from raw materials? It was the wheelwright, an artisan whose name often goes unmentioned in the grand chronicles of history, whose workshops were tucked away from the main squares, their quiet diligence providing the very arteries through which medieval society flowed. Theirs was a silent duty, a constant, often overlooked necessity that kept the world in motion, one sturdy, perfectly balanced wheel at a time. So, settle deeper into your repose. Let the gentle murmur of our story guide you as we delve into the profound significance of the wheelwright's craft, exploring the materials they coaxed into shape, the demanding toil that filled their days, the physical and mental burdens they bore, and the humble spaces in which their essential work unfolded. We will also consider the precarious financial tightrope they often walked, and finally, acknowledge the lasting, though now fading, legacy of these indispensable artisans. Allow your mind to wander, to imagine the rhythmic tap of a hammer, the earthy scent of seasoned timber, and the quiet dedication of a craftsperson shaping the very gears of a bygone world. Let these gentle images lead you towards a deep and undisturbed rest. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to Medieval Screen Finds to get more boring sleep videos, but only if these videos truly brings you rest. Please let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. It's comforting seeing all the places where these calm historical stories reach. In the vast tapestry of medieval life, where every thread was interwoven with necessity and tradition, few crafts were as fundamentally critical as that of the wheelwright. Imagine a world without paved roads, a landscape often rugged and unforgiving, where journeys were measured not in hours, but in days or even weeks. In such a world, the reliability of transport was paramount. It was the very lifeline of trade and travel, the silent enabler of armies, and the indispensable aid to agriculture. And at the heart of this constant movement lay the wheel, a marvel of ancient engineering, brought into being and maintained by the skilled hands of the wheelwright. Consider the sheer breadth of demands placed upon these crucial components. From the mighty siege engines that lumbered towards castle walls, their colossal wheels groaning under immense weight, to the farmer's humble cart, carrying firewood or harvested crops from field to hearth, every turn depended on the wheelwright's meticulous work. Lords required robust carriages for their journeys between estates, their progress a visible symbol of their power and wealth. Merchants relied on sturdy wagons to transport precious goods, spices from distant lands, textiles woven in bustling towns, or metalwork from industrious forges across treacherous terrain, their livelihoods inextricably linked to the integrity of their conveyance. And the common farmer, whose very existence was tied to the land, needed durable carts to bring in the harvest, to carry feed for livestock, or to transport tools to the fields. The demands for reliable transport were endless and varied, a ceaseless hum in the background of medieval existence. The roads themselves offered a constant, brutal test to the integrity of any wheel. These were not the smooth, engineered surfaces we know today. Instead, they were often little more than well-worn tracks, carved by centuries of foot traffic, hooves, and cartwheels. They twisted and turned, climbed over rocky rises, and descended into muddy hollows. Rain transformed them into treacherous quagmires, dust turned them into chokingly dry conduits, and frost could crack their surfaces into jagged traps. Potholes were not an occasional nuisance, but a ubiquitous feature, ready to jar a wheel, snap a spoke, or splinter a felloe with every unsuspecting plunge. The constant wear and breakage of wheels on these rough medieval roads were an inescapable reality, ensuring a perpetual need for the wheelwright's services. Imagine the perspective of a merchant, perhaps, journeying from one market town to another, laden with valuable wares. Each creak of the wagon, each jarring impact with a stone, would have been a source of quiet anxiety. A broken wheel in a remote stretch of road could mean days of delay, exposure to bandits, or even the ruin of their precious cargo. The wheelwright, therefore, was not simply a builder, but a guardian of commerce, a silent partner in every journey undertaken. Their meticulous craft ensured that goods flowed, markets thrived, and livelihoods were sustained. Without their constant vigilance and tireless repair, the delicate web of medieval trade would unravel. Or picture a feudal lord embarking on a military campaign. The success of his endeavour could hinge upon the swift movement of his troops and, crucially, his supplies. Siege towers, catapults, and provisions all required substantial, durable wheels. A broken wheel on a supply cart could starve an army. A damaged axle on a siege engine could halt a vital assault. The wheelwright's forge, therefore, became an extension of the war machine, their hammers striking not only for commerce but for conquest, their skills contributing directly to the ebb and flow of medieval power. The very rhythm of life in a medieval village or town was subtly dictated by the presence or absence of sound wheels. The daily commute of the miller, the delivery of stone for a new church, the movement of timber from the forest, the endless flow of food into populated centres. All these vital activities hummed along on wheels crafted and maintained by the wheelwright. They were the unsung heroes of logistics, the quiet enablers of everyday existence. Their shops, often humble and unassuming, were nevertheless essential hubs, vital organs in the sprawling body of medieval society. Consider the skill involved in this seemingly simple task. A wheel is far more than just a circular piece of wood. It is a complex assembly of different components, each requiring precise shaping and fitting: the central hub or nave, the radiating spokes, and the curved felloes that form the rim, all bound together by a strong iron tire. Each part had to be carefully selected, seasoned, and worked by hand. The wood itself, whether sturdy oak for spokes or resilient elm for hubs, had to be understood intimately. Its grain, its resistance to splitting, its response to moisture and temperature. The wheelwright possessed this deep, almost intuitive knowledge of timber, coaxing from it the strength and flexibility required to endure the relentless punishment of medieval roads. Furthermore, the wheelwright's craft was often passed down through generations, a legacy of embodied knowledge flowing from father to son or master to apprentice. It was a trade learned not from books, but through years of patient observation, repetitive practice, and the quiet absorption of subtle techniques. The nuances of tempering iron, the precise angle for a spoke tenon, the subtle curve needed for a felloe segment. These were secrets whispered across generations, honed through countless hours of painstaking labor. It was a craft rooted in tradition, yet constantly adapting to the specific demands of each commission. Even in moments of rest, the medieval mind, if it paused to consider such things, would have implicitly understood the wheelwright's quiet duty. Though their names rarely entered the chronicles of the powerful, their impact was felt in every journey, every delivery, every turning of the world. They were the dependable gears in the vast, intricate clockwork of medieval life, always needed, always at work. Their quiet workshops, filled with the scent of wood and the rhythmic sounds of their craft, were testament to a profound interdependence. The castle might stand majestic on its hill, the market might bustle with activity, and the fields might yield their bounty, but none of these could truly function without the silent, ceaseless effort of the wheelwright, ensuring that the wheels, quite literally, kept turning. This constant, understated importance imbued the wheelwright with a unique, if often unacknowledged, authority. They were the arbiters of movement. When a wheel broke, the wheelwright was the immediate, indispensable solution. Delays could not be afforded. A journey halted, a market missed, a harvest left to rot. These were real and tangible consequences of a damaged wheel. And so, the wheelwright, through their quiet competence, held a subtle sway over the flow of medieval life, their skilled hands enabling the journeys that shaped economies, supported armies, and sustained daily existence. As we gently transition to the next chapter, imagine the wheelwright at the start of another day. The sun, perhaps, is just beginning to cast long shadows across their humble workshop. The air is cool, carrying the faint sweet scent of newly cut timber. Before them lies the raw material, a sturdy log perhaps, or a stack of roughly cut planks. Their mind is already at work, calculating, planning, envisioning the finished wheel that will soon bear the weight of the world. Their hands, calloused and strong, are ready for the demanding work ahead, ready to transform mere wood and iron into the vital mechanisms that kept the world in motion. The quiet rhythm of their labor is about to begin anew, a rhythm that echoed through centuries, a testament to a craft that was as essential as it was demanding. Having understood the indispensable role of the wheelwright in the intricate dance of medieval life, we now turn our attention to the heart of their labor, the grueling, detailed work involved in bringing a single wheel into existence. It was a process born of deep knowledge, immense physical strength, and an almost meditative patience, transforming raw elements of the earth into vital tools of commerce and movement. The journey of a wheel began long before hammer met wood or iron. It started in the silent depths of the forest, with the crucial task of choosing and seasoning the right wood. This was not a decision made lightly, for the strength and longevity of the finished wheel depended entirely on the quality and type of timber used. Oak, with its dense grain and formidable resilience, was often the preferred choice for spokes and felloes, the curved segments that formed the wheel's rim. Its inherent toughness allowed it to withstand the constant pounding and twisting stresses of rough roads. For the central hub, or nave, a different quality was sought. Here, elm was often favoured. Elm possessed a unique interlocked grain that resisted splitting, a critical property for the part of the wheel that bore the direct weight and rotational forces of the axle. The wheelwright, or perhaps their timber supplier, would walk among the trees, keenly observing the bark, the straightness of the trunk, the absence of knots or signs of disease, seeking out the perfect specimens. Once felled, the selected timber was not immediately ready for carving. It had to be seasoned, a process of slow, careful drying that could take months or even years. Imagine planks of oak and elm stacked neatly in a sheltered, airy shed, away from direct sun or harsh winds, allowing the moisture within the wood to gradually evaporate. This slow curing was essential to prevent warping, cracking, or excessive shrinkage after the wheel was assembled. A wheel made from unseasoned wood would quickly deform, its joints loosening and its integrity compromised, a disaster for both the wheelwright's reputation and the unfortunate traveller. The scent of drying timber, a deep, earthy aroma, would have permeated the wheelwright's surroundings, a constant reminder of the patience inherent in their craft. With the timber suitably seasoned, the intensely physical work of shaping heavy timbers by hand would begin. The wheelwright's workshop would resonate with the rhythmic sounds of axe on wood, the tearing rasp of saws, and the precise thud of adzes. The initial roughing out of the wheel's components, the massive hub, the numerous spokes, the curved felloe segments, was a strenuous undertaking. An axe, wielded with practiced precision, would remove large chunks of wood, slowly revealing the approximate shape. Then came the saw, laboriously cutting planks and shaping sections. The adze, a tool resembling a large hoe with a curved blade, was used for finer shaping and smoothing, its sharp edge capable of removing thin shavings with surprising accuracy. This was not a task for the faint of heart. It required immense upper body strength, endurance, and an unwavering focus. Each swing of the axe, each pull of the saw, was an act of deliberate, controlled force, shaping stubborn timber into elegant, functional forms. Consider the shaping of the hub, the central piece from which all other elements radiate. It was often turned on a simple, foot-powered lathe, or painstakingly carved by hand. The wheelwright would ensure its bore was perfectly concentric, allowing the axle to fit snugly, yet smoothly, for proper rotation. Then came the intricate work of cutting the mortises, the precisely sized and angled holes into which the spokes would eventually be driven. This required careful measurement and skilled use of chisels and mallets, ensuring each mortise was identical, preventing any wobble or imbalance in the finished wheel. The spokes, typically between 12 and 14 for a standard cartwheel, demanded particular attention. Each spoke had to be identical in length and thickness, tapered correctly, and fitted with tenons, projections at each end, designed to fit into the mortises of the hub and felloes. Shaping these individual pieces, often from solid oak, involved endless repetition, a quiet, almost hypnotic rhythm of carving and planing. The wheelwright would work with a spoke shave, a small hand tool with a blade between two handles, allowing for precise control and a smooth finish. The shavings would curl away in fragrant ribbons, piling up on the dusty floor, each one a testament to the meticulous labor involved. Perhaps the most intricate part of the wooden assembly was the creation of the felloes, the curved segments that formed the rim of the wheel. A single wheel might have 6 or 8 felloes, each needing to be bent or carved into a perfect arc, their ends precisely angled to meet their neighbors without gap or strain. These were then joined together, often with dowels or specialized joints, forming a strong, continuous circle. The exact curvature and flush fit were paramount, as any imperfection would create weakness or imbalance, condemning the wheel to premature failure. Once the wooden components were complete and meticulously fitted together, a process known as setting the wheel, the final and perhaps most dramatic stage began: fitting the iron tires. This was a task that often involved the assistance of a blacksmith, or at least access to a powerful forge. The iron tire, a flat band of metal, had to be precisely measured to be slightly smaller in circumference than the wooden wheel itself. This intentional discrepancy was crucial. The iron band was heated in a roaring forge until it glowed a deep cherry red. Imagine the intense heat, the shimmering air above the forge, the acrid scent of coal smoke mingling with the sweetness of burning wood. With tongs, the red-hot band was carefully lifted and quickly placed over the wooden wheel. The instant the hot iron touched the wood, a sizzle would erupt, steam would hiss, and the faint smell of scorching timber would fill the air. Then, the frantic work of hammering began. Working swiftly, before the iron could cool and shrink too much, the wheelwright and their assistants would use heavy hammers to drive the tire evenly onto the wooden rim, ensuring it sat perfectly flush and tight against the felloes. Water might be poured over the hot iron to accelerate the cooling process, causing a dramatic cloud of steam to billow upwards. As the iron cooled, it would contract, shrinking tightly around the wooden wheel, binding all the components together with immense compressive force. This shrinking action was what gave the wheel its incredible strength and rigidity, making it capable of withstanding the immense stresses of travel. The entire process was a race against time, a furious burst of controlled chaos, ending with the satisfied thunk as the iron band settled into its final, unyielding embrace of the wood. The constant strain on the wheelwright's body was immense, lifting heavy timbers, bending over workbenches, hammering with powerful, repetitive blows, day after day. Their hands would be calloused, their muscles perpetually aching, their backs often stooped from years of demanding labor. Each finished wheel was not just a product of skill, but a testament to profound physical endurance. The rhythmic clang of the hammer, the rasp of the saw, the earthy scent of wood, and the metallic tang of iron would have been the constant companions of their working lives, sounds and smells that spoke of diligent, unrelenting toil. And yet, within this demanding physicality, there was a quiet artistry. The aesthetic of a well-made wheel, its spokes evenly spaced, its felloes perfectly curved, its iron tire gleaming dull in the light, was a beauty born of utility. It was a beauty that spoke of balance, strength, and purpose. A humble masterpiece of engineering designed to endure. Each wheel, once completed, would be rolled out of the workshop, perhaps leaning against an outer wall, awaiting its purpose. A silent declaration of the wheelwright's dedication. As we contemplate the profound effort embedded in each wheel, we begin to appreciate not just the object itself, but the human story woven into its very grain and iron. The blisters that would inevitably form, the muscles that would ache, the deep weariness that settled into the bones. These were the silent, unseen costs of keeping the medieval world in motion. The constant, repetitive nature of the work, the precise movements, the deep focus required, would have created a meditative state for the wheelwright, their thoughts perhaps drifting, yet their hands never faltering. It was a dance between mind and material, a testament to the enduring power of human craft in a world shaped by hands and simple tools. The finished wheel, now a unified, powerful entity of wood and iron, was ready to embark on its own journey, to bear burdens, to facilitate travel, and to endure the harsh realities of medieval roads. Its silent strength was a direct reflection of the wheelwright's relentless toil, their deep understanding of materials, and their unwavering commitment to their essential craft. The subtle details, the precise angles, the seamless fit, all contributed to a longevity that was absolutely vital. And so the cycle continued, a new wheel born, another journey enabled, all sustained by the quiet, tireless efforts of the wheelwright. The sounds of their work, though often localized to their workshop, truly resonated throughout the medieval landscape, a low, constant hum of productivity. Having explored the intricate process of crafting a medieval wheel, we now turn to the profound impact this demanding work had on the very individuals who undertook it. The life of a medieval wheelwright, while essential to society, was one of relentless physical exertion and quiet mental fortitude. It was a life marked by the constant companionship of pain and weariness, a testament to the sheer human cost of their indispensable craft. Imagine, if you will, the wheelwright's hands. These were not the soft, unblemished hands of a scholar or a courtier. They would have been thick with calluses, toughened by years of gripping rough timber and wielding heavy tools. But even these hardened hands were not immune to the everyday injuries of the wheelwright's shop. Splinters were a ubiquitous menace, microscopic shards of wood embedding themselves under fingernails or deep within the flesh, causing persistent irritation and sometimes festering infections in an age before modern antiseptics. The constant shaping of wood with chisels and adzes, the precise fitting of spokes, and the handling of raw timber invariably led to these tiny, yet nagging, wounds. Then there were the burns, a constant threat from the forge. The process of heating the iron tires to a glowing red and then swiftly hammering them into place on the wooden wheel involved intense heat and flying sparks. Despite precautions, a momentary lapse, a misplaced tool, or a sudden gust of wind could send hot metal fragments or searing embers onto exposed skin. The smell of singed hair or flesh might occasionally mingle with the scent of wood and smoke, a grim reminder of the dangers inherent in their craft. And of course, the blisters. Repetitive motions, the friction of tool handles against skin, the powerful swinging of hammers, all contributed to the formation of raw, painful blisters that would burst, heal, and then inevitably reappear, a perpetual cycle of discomfort that was simply part of the daily grind. Each blister was a small personal testament to the unrelenting physical demands of their profession. Beyond these immediate, visible injuries lay the deeper, more pervasive physical toll. The wheelwright's daily routine was a continuous symphony of strenuous activities. Lifting heavy timbers, a seasoned oak log for a hub, or long planks for felloes, required immense strength and often the assistance of an apprentice or fellow worker. Imagine straining, muscles burning, as a weighty section of wood is hoisted onto a workbench or maneuvered into place. Then came the endless bending over these workpieces, hunching over a wheel as spokes were fitted, or leaning into the grain with a spoke shave. This constant stooping and contorting would have put immense strain on the lower back and shoulders, leading to chronic aches that permeated their very being. And the hammering, the relentless rhythmic striking of iron on iron or mallet on chisel. The vibrations would travel up the arm, jarring the joints, leading to aching backs and weary arms that never truly found rest. Every swing, every impact compounded the fatigue. Over years, this ceaseless physical strain would inevitably lead to worn joints, stiff muscles, and a pervasive sense of exhaustion that no amount of sleep could fully alleviate. The wheelwright's body was their primary tool, and it bore the brunt of their demanding profession, silently accumulating the wear and tear of a lifetime of hard labor. But the burdens of the wheelwright were not solely physical. They extended into the realm of the mind. The stress of meeting urgent demands for repairs was a constant companion. Imagine a merchant, anxious to depart for a distant market with perishable goods, whose wagon wheel has inexplicably broken, or a lord preparing for a military campaign whose crucial supply cart requires immediate attention. These were not requests that could be postponed. Delays could mean financial ruin for the merchant, or a strategic disadvantage for the lord. The wheelwright would face immense pressure to work quickly, often into the late hours, pushing their already weary bodies to the limits to ensure the wheels of commerce or conflict continued to turn. The quiet hum of their workshop could quickly become a tense environment, charged with the urgency of outside demands. Furthermore, the wheelwright's work was often characterized by a quiet isolation. While they might have an apprentice or a journeyman, much of their day was spent in solitary concentration, deep in thought. The meticulous nature of the craft, requiring precise measurements and careful carving, demanded an almost meditative focus. Hours would pass, filled only by the sounds of their tools and their own internal musings. This isolation, while perhaps fostering a deep connection to their craft, could also lead to a sense of detachment, a quietude that permeated their very spirit. There was little time for idle chatter or social pleasantries. The work demanded their undivided attention, their singular focus on the task at hand. This combination of physical strain and mental pressure often painted a grim, yet stoic, picture. Unlike the farmer, who might work with neighbours in the fields, or the weaver, who might work alongside others in a bustling loomhouse, the wheelwright's shop was often a more solitary domain. The decisions about wood selection, the intricacies of joinery, the precise fitting of the iron tire, these were all individual responsibilities, resting squarely on the shoulders of the master wheelwright. Each choice, each cut, carried the weight of the wheel's future performance. The relentless nature of their work meant that even moments of rest were likely coloured by anticipation of the next demanding task. There was little room for true idleness or leisurely pursuits. The tools of their trade were extensions of their hands, and their lives were often defined by the rhythm of their craft. Even in their dreams, one might imagine the wheelwright's mind still turning, perhaps envisioning the perfect curve of a felloe or the precise angle for a spoke, a subconscious continuation of their waking toil. Despite these hardships, there was a profound resilience woven into the fabric of the wheelwright's existence. They were problem solvers, artisans who understood the inherent challenges of their materials and the unforgiving nature of the medieval world. Their quiet determination allowed them to push through the pain, to ignore the weariness, driven by the knowledge that their craft was not merely a livelihood, but a vital service. They saw the tangible results of their labour, a repaired cart rolling smoothly away, a new wagon embarking on its maiden journey. In these small victories, there was a quiet satisfaction, a sense of purpose that transcended the physical discomfort. The blistered hands, the aching back, the weary mind. These were not merely unfortunate consequences of their trade, but rather intrinsic parts of the wheelwright's identity. They were the marks of a life lived in service to movement, a life dedicated to ensuring the continuous turning of the medieval world. As we consider their quiet perseverance, we gain a deeper appreciation for the silent strength of these artisans, whose daily struggles ensured the functionality and connectivity of their age. Their story is a testament to the enduring human spirit in the face of arduous and often uncelebrated labour. After delving into the immense personal cost borne by the wheelwright, let us now transport ourselves to the very heart of their world, the medieval wheelwright's shop. This was not merely a place of work. It was a sensory landscape, a unique environment shaped by the materials, the labour, and the quiet dedication that unfolded within its walls. To truly understand the wheelwright, one must immerse oneself, however gently, in the atmosphere of their domain. Imagine stepping across the threshold of such a shop. The first sensation that might greet you is the sharp yet pleasant scent of fresh-cut timber. This aroma, often a mix of oak, elm, or ash, would have permeated every corner, clinging to the tools, the walls, and the very clothes of the wheelwright. It was the smell of living wood, newly exposed, its resins and natural oils releasing their distinctive fragrance into the air. This clean, woody scent would mingle subtly with another, more acrid presence, the smoke from the forge. Even if the forge was not roaring at that precise moment, the lingering smell of coal smoke, of superheated iron, and of the faint, almost metallic tang of combustion would always be present, an earthy counterpoint to the sweetness of the timber. These two primary scents would define the olfactory experience of the workshop, a constant reminder of the dual nature of the wheelwright's craft, the shaping of organic material and the manipulation of raw metal. As your senses adjust, the sounds of the shop would begin to articulate themselves. There would be the rhythmic sound of hammer on iron. Perhaps the blacksmith, a close collaborator of the wheelwright, is at his anvil in a corner, shaping a new tire or forging a tool. The ringing clang, the dull thud, the sharp tap, each strike would echo through the space, a testament to focused power. Interspersed with this metallic symphony would be the softer, yet equally insistent sounds of wood being worked. The tearing rasp of a saw as a plank is cut, the steady scrape of a plane smoothing a surface, or the softer, more percussive tap of a mallet on a chisel. These sounds would create a subtle, intricate soundscape, a lullaby of industry, each note speaking of purposeful activity. There might also be the gentle thud of a timber being moved, the soft creak of a workbench under strain, or the quiet hiss as a newly fitted iron tire is doused with water to cool, releasing a cloud of fragrant steam. Visually, the shop would be a masterclass in organized clutter. Dusty benches would line the walls, their surfaces scarred and darkened by years of use, often littered with wood shavings and fine sawdust. Laid out upon these benches, or perhaps hanging neatly from pegs, would be the wheelwright's essential tools. A collection of chisels, their blades glinting dully in the ambient light, each one sharpened to a keen edge for precise carving. There would be gouges with their curved blades used for hollowing out sections or shaping rounded surfaces. Spoke shaves, small, specialized planes, would be evident, their elegant forms designed for the delicate work of shaping spokes. Mallets, axes, saws of various sizes, measuring rules, and marking gauges, each tool would have its designated place, a silent extension of the wheelwright's hands and intentions. The very presence of these well-used implements would speak volumes of the countless hours of labor invested within these walls. In the quieter corners, you might observe large, partially finished wheels leaning against walls or stacked carefully, undergoing the slow process of seasoning, their wood gradually releasing its moisture. Sections of raw timber, perhaps newly arrived from the forest, would occupy another space, awaiting their transformation. There might be a dedicated area for the forge, its hearth blackened with soot, its bellows waiting to roar to life, ready to heat the iron tires to a malleable state. The floor, often packed earth or rough timber, would be perpetually dusted with wood shavings and sawdust, occasionally swept into piles, but never entirely free of the fine remnants of creation. As dusk began to settle, the atmosphere within the shop would shift. If the work continued, the glow of the forge would become more pronounced, casting long, dancing shadows across the cluttered space. The flickering light from the coals would illuminate the wheelwright's face, highlighting the lines of concentration, making the tools seem to come alive in the moving shadows. The rhythmic sounds of hammering might soften or grow more deliberate as weariness began to set in. The shop, which during the day was a hub of purposeful activity, would take on a more intimate, almost contemplative quality under the fading light. The air, thick with the scents of wood and smoke, would feel warmer, more enclosed, a sanctuary of ceaseless work. And imagine the subtle details often overlooked, perhaps a half-eaten meal sitting on a small stool, forgotten in the intensity of a task, the faint outline of a child's drawing etched into a dusty corner, left by a visiting son or daughter, the small stack of completed wheels, ready for collection, leaning silently outside the shop door, their sturdy presence a quiet declaration of the wheelwright's productivity. These small elements would paint a picture of a life lived within the rhythm of the workshop, where personal life and professional dedication were deeply intertwined. The scents, the sounds, the visual textures all contributed to an environment that was deeply immersive for the wheelwright. It was their domain, their creative sanctuary, however humble its outward appearance. It was a place where skill met grit, where raw materials yielded to patient craftsmanship, and where the silent, vital work of keeping the medieval world moving forward unfolded, day after demanding day. This sensory tableau, a symphony of wood, iron, and human endeavor, serves as a gentle reminder of the tangible reality of a craft now largely faded into memory, its echoes discernible only to those who pause to listen. We have traversed the physical demands and sensory landscape of the medieval wheelwright's life, witnessing their ceaseless toil and the quiet mastery of their craft. Now, we must turn our attention to a more unsettling aspect of their existence, the fragile financial tightrope they often walked, a precarious balance between painstaking labor and the ever-present risk of ruin. Despite their essential role, the wheelwright's livelihood was often beset by challenges, making financial stability a fleeting dream for many. One of the most significant pressures facing the medieval wheelwright was the high cost of materials. Iron, the vital component for the wheel's binding tire, was a precious commodity. It required extensive mining, smelting, and forging by skilled blacksmiths before it even reached the wheelwright's shop. Its price fluctuated, influenced by supply, demand, and regional availability. Timber, too, despite its apparent abundance in forested landscapes, was not free. Large, seasoned logs of oak or elm, suitable for robust wheels, often needed to be purchased from landowners or timber merchants. Tools, essential for their intricate work, chisels, adzes, saws, mallets, and specialized spoke shaves, were also significant investments. They required regular maintenance, sharpening, and occasional replacement, adding to the overhead. Imagine the constant calculation in the wheelwright's mind, balancing the cost of acquiring these raw materials and maintaining their tools against the price they could realistically charge for their finished products. A miscalculation, or a sudden spike in material costs, could easily erode their already slim profit margins. Adding to this financial vulnerability was the pervasive issue of clients who delayed or outright refused payment, leaving craftsmen in debt. In an age without formal banking systems or swift legal recourse, credit was often extended based on trust and reputation. A lord might commission a new carriage wheel, promising payment upon completion, only to delay for weeks or months, leaving the wheelwright in a difficult position. A farmer, needing an urgent repair to his cart during harvest season, might agree to pay after his crops were sold, but a poor harvest or unexpected illness could mean that payment never materialized or arrived severely curtailed. The wheelwright, having already invested their time, labor, and precious materials, would then be left to absorb the loss, their own meager savings depleted. Such instances, while perhaps not daily occurrences, were a constant threat, undermining their solvency and adding a layer of anxiety to their already demanding lives. The weight of unpaid invoices, or the quiet shame of having to press a reluctant client for overdue funds, would have been a heavy burden indeed. Furthermore, The very nature of their work was often seasonal, leading to periods of feast or famine, depending on external factors like war, trade, and harvests. During times of peace and robust trade, when goods moved freely and markets thrived, the demand for new wheels and repairs would be high. Wagons would be constantly in use, and wear and tear would necessitate frequent visits to the wheelwright. Similarly, during harvest season, when farmers needed their carts in peak condition to bring in their precious crops, the wheelwright's shop would be bustling with urgent requests. These periods might offer a brief respite of consistent income. However, periods of war could be a double-edged sword. While armies required a surge in wheel production for siege engines and supply carts, civilian trade might dwindle, and the general economy could suffer, impacting the overall demand. More significantly, outbreaks of disease or prolonged periods of severe weather could bring movement to a standstill. If roads became impassable due to deep snow or widespread flooding, travel would cease, and with it, the need for wheel repairs. A poor harvest, leading to widespread hardship, would mean less disposable income for farmers, reducing their ability to pay for new wheels or extensive repairs. During such lean times, the wheelwright might find themselves with little to no work, their skills unneeded, their income vanishing. This unpredictable ebb and flow of demand made long-term financial planning incredibly challenging, forcing the wheelwright to live month to month, often hoping for better times just around the corner. Bankruptcy, therefore, was not a distant, abstract concept, but a constant, looming threat. One bad season, one unpaid large commission, or a series of unavoidable expenses could swiftly mean ruin. Losing their tools, their workshop, or even their home was a very real possibility. Imagine the quiet desperation of a wheelwright watching their livelihood slip away, their years of learned skill unable to stave off the tide of misfortune. This precarious financial existence meant that every decision, every material purchase, and every extension of credit carried significant risk. There was little safety net in the medieval world. A family's welfare was often directly tied to the consistent earning potential of its primary provider. The pressure to maintain quality, even amidst financial strain, would have been immense. A shoddy wheel, prone to breakage, would quickly damage a wheelwright's reputation, leading to a loss of clients and an even deeper slide into poverty. Therefore, despite the temptation to cut corners or use lesser materials to save costs, the dedicated wheelwright had to resist, knowing that their long-term survival depended on the integrity of their work. This often meant sacrificing their own comfort, stretching their resources, and working even longer, more arduous hours to ensure each wheel was crafted to the highest standard. In essence, the medieval wheelwright, despite being indispensable, often existed on the fringes of financial security. Their robust hands, capable of shaping the very tools of medieval progress, were often empty of coin. Their keen minds, so adept at engineering and problem-solving, were frequently burdened by the anxieties of solvency. This quiet struggle, largely unseen by the nobility and merchants who benefited from their labor, adds another layer of complexity to their story. It highlights the stark realities of medieval craftsmanship, where skill and necessity did not always equate to comfort or wealth. Their perseverance in the face of such adversity is a testament not only to their dedication to craft, but also to their quiet resilience in a harsh economic landscape. The memory of their struggles, as gentle as it may be, helps us to truly understand the burdens that were borne by these vital, yet often vulnerable, artisans. We have journeyed through the vital importance, the painstaking craft, the physical and mental tolls, and the financial precarity that defined the life of the medieval wheelwright. As our journey through this quiet corner of history draws to a close, it is time to reflect on the lasting contribution of these unsung artisans and the gentle fading of their presence into the annals of time. The skill and strength of wheelwrights were, in a profound and undeniable sense, what kept medieval society moving forward. Their mastery of wood and iron, their tireless dedication to creating and repairing the crucial mechanisms of transport, ensured that the very pulse of medieval life continued to beat. Without their expertise, trade routes would have withered, armies would have been immobile, and agricultural communities would have struggled to bring their produce to market. Every creak of a cart, every rumble of a wagon, every journey undertaken across the often treacherous medieval landscape was a silent testament to the wheelwright's enduring craft. They were the essential, yet often overlooked gears in the intricate machinery of their age, their labour enabling progress and connectivity in a world that moved at the pace of the wheel. They ensured the flow of goods, the movement of people, and the very functioning of communities. However, as the centuries turned and the world began its slow, inexorable march towards industrialization, the era of the individual wheelwright began to wane. The rise of factories and machine-made wheels, driven by the burgeoning technologies of the Industrial Revolution, gradually rendered the traditional artisan's workshop less essential. Machines could produce wheels with greater speed, uniformity, and often at a lower cost than the painstaking hand craftsmanship of the individual wheelwright. The rhythmic sound of the power loom replaced the quiet rasp of the spokeshave, and the roar of the steam engine slowly overshadowed the rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer on the iron tire. The demand for bespoke, handmade wooden wheels, once a constant necessity, slowly diminished, replaced by standardized, mass-produced alternatives. Today, the craft of the wheelwright is largely a whisper from the past, a fading memory preserved in museums and historical reenactments rather than bustling workshops. Old wheels and tools, once vibrant with purpose and infused with the sweat and skill of their makers, are now often left behind as silent reminders of forgotten labour. You might encounter a gnarled, weathered wooden wheel, perhaps leaning against the crumbling wall of a forgotten barn. Its spokes warped, its iron tire rusted and detached. Or perhaps, tucked away in the dusty corner of an antique shop, you might spot a hand-forged spokeshave, its wooden handles smooth from generations of use, its blade dulled, but still hinting at its former keenness. These objects are not merely relics, they are echoes of lives lived, tangible connections to a time when human strength and intricate skill were the primary drivers of progress. They stand as quiet monuments to the countless hours of toil, the deep knowledge, and the profound dedication of those who shaped them. Consider, if you will, a final, gentle image. Imagine a broken wagon resting quietly in the weeds at the edge of a forgotten field, its timber weathered to a soft, silvery grey, its once proud wheels collapsed or slowly sinking into the damp earth. Its wheelwright, the artisan who meticulously shaped its parts, who sweated over its assembly, is long gone, his name unrecorded in any grand history. His work, however, remains, slowly returning to the land from which its materials came. The silent presence of that broken wagon, its purpose fulfilled, its journey complete, serves as a poignant reminder of a craft that once thrived, a labour that once kept the world turning. The wheelwright's work, though the artisan himself may be forgotten, is now part of the land's quiet memory, absorbed into the very fabric of the landscape, a subtle yet enduring legacy. The story of the medieval wheelwright is not one of dramatic triumphs or heroic battles. It is instead a humble narrative of persistent labour, quiet dedication, and fundamental importance. It reminds us that history is not solely shaped by the grand figures in castles and courts, but equally by the anonymous hands that built, maintained, and enabled the everyday mechanisms of life. The wheelwright, in their quiet corner of existence, embodied the spirit of medieval craftsmanship, a testament to the power of human skill to transform raw materials into indispensable tools, linking communities and supporting the very progress of their age. As we bring this gentle exploration to a close, allow the quiet images of seasoned timber, the rhythmic sounds of the workshop, and the enduring spirit of the wheelwright to settle in your mind. Their contribution, though often uncelebrated, was profound, a constant vital force that propelled medieval society forward. May the echoes of their long-forgotten hammers and the faint scent of their ancient workshops now guide you towards a deep and peaceful rest, a sleep as restorative and enduring as the strong, true wheels they once crafted. Good night.